my pitch is actually going to be to try and get women to basically stop catering to men. And not
Well,
because I
we're
think
well on our
that
way to that. I feel like. So.
oh, you better believe it. And I think it's funny because I saw this within Mensa. Adnan here in the comments section is saying that IQ isn't a thing. This is like saying that race isn't a thing. IQ is a context that they have given while they witness how fast you can move your brain. I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, but we have to observe how other people refer to it, and under that context, then we can speak to it. But when I was in Mensa, I was an activities officer for San Diego Mensa for several months until I found out that there was a Facebook group being run out of my chapter here in the U.S. and the national board was observing what I have 1,800 photographs of screenshots of hate speech towards Black people, towards Muslims, towards Jews by people in Mensa, and the national board is literally staring at it and going, "This is fine," not doing a goddamn thing about it. And hey, if you have anybody that you know that wants 1,800 screenshots of Mensa saying dumb shit as one of the most prestigious intelligence societies in the world, you just let me know. I got a Google Drive.
I mean, it
Um,
just goes to
and
show you, though, right? Like, I mean, I remember having a conversation on here with a racialized white guy who said troglodyte racist. That term, troglodyte racist, and in his mind, those are the different kind of racists. Like
yeah,
practically dragging their knuckles and this and that and blah blah
yeah,
blah. But like,
no,
obviously, you can be obviously Mensa as an organization and the individuals contained there within are willing to be openly,
yeah,
bigoted.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. And the thing is, I did a data analysis on these guys. I went back through 13 years of posts, and it was always somebody else's fault. They weren't having fun. The men who were posting all this shit were some of the most unagent people to make any changes to their own lives, but they sure mailed it in for capitalism and puritanism super hard. They had the check in the mail for their person every week. And this is my point, is that that IQ becomes this myth because the speed of your intellect is just to arrive at dumb thoughts faster.
I mean, there's
Cool.
so many. We shouldn't get into IQ because he's right. Like there are so many problems with it
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
terms
Okay,
of. I
but
mean,
but
like
like but like
the list is endless. So we
the
should.
the the the
Yeah.
the the reason it's worth speaking to that is because even among people who consider them the most intelligent, here they are fumbling around with dumbass ideas, stuff that we can prove wrong in
I
like an
mean,
instant.
what I
Come
say
on.
these days a lot is it tracks. It tracks.
Well, that's part of what I'm noticing about this is that white culture has the exact same problem that anyone who doesn't add anything new is going to have. That you'll eventually have run out of all the ideas that you use in order to have fun, and it just doesn't feed your brain the way it needs to in order to hold these big ideas. And so they get real scared as soon as they see somebody coming down the street and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing in my neighborhood, you person, you?" And it's like, I actually moved in next door. The fact that I'm just a new person shouldn't scare you this much. This is just existing. And because humans have this premise they gave themselves that we are God's gift to earth, we view other entities, not ourselves, as worthless, as just removable. Our highways, our buildings, all of those things are, if you go into Ross or TJ Maxx or Walmart, there's no bugs anywhere. Just everything's been paved out of sight, out of mind, so that you can have a clear focus on what's on the rack. And when I think about how my experience trying to throw massive fucking parties for Mensa, I started getting really good traction. And the thing was that's how you do it. Throw a fucking house party and learn the infrastructure of throwing a house party until you get to the point where you can have a larger one that runs better, not like a frat party, like something for people who are responsible in their partying where they can go as hard as they want, but there's not broken furniture, you know. A lot, well, I mean, I've had broken furniture, but it was, you know, misunderstanding, not actually an on purpose thing. And what I figured out is that you can build any infrastructure to any idea, any you can build the ideas to any infrastructure that you want. You can build the bridge to anything that you want out of this stuff. And the reason it's so fundamentally important to understand that is because it I wish we could rip away the chains of what it is that we are told that we are supposed to be or that we have to be in order to be allowed to have these identities. Because in an era where we have the agency to just build whatever the fuck we want because we figured out everybody who's running the fucking thing just used somebody else's imagination from a long time ago, and if it works they keep doing it. Yeah, of course they're going to keep using it if it rewards them. If your car gets you to work, even if it's a gas guzzler, you may just keep that car rather than buying a new one because you don't have the mental skills to think about how getting a new one that consumes less gas is actually going to net you more value. It's the same dilemma we have with solar. It's the same dilemma we have with wind turbines. If the entire oil and gas industry fucking realized that they converted all their assets to wind farms, not only would they have an abundance of renewable energy that would literally never go out, but they could just get it out of the way now while the shit's cheap. But they don't think about that. They think,
I
oh, I
mean,
better
I
just have
mean,
what I got.
it's not necessarily that they don't think about that. They don't have to think about it. Like, that's the point. They don't need to worry about getting it for cheap. Like, that's the whole point. Like, getting it for cheap is going to be appealing to someone who needs to get it for cheap. If you're already getting it and you have a system set up by which you're getting it, that's why
Yeah.
you're not thinking about it. I'm not saying you're not, but like,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
reason why.
Well, and it's the gift of this is something that I've had a hard time wrapping my head around because the thing that I was gifted with was that men will be nerds. My father's fathers, all those guys were nerded out about some shit. And that was the thing that you were allowed to give yourself was like being an engineer freak. You want math and science, you can have as much of that weird shit as you want, and no one can get in your way. But I started hanging out with, you know, people who had graduated college when I wasn't allowed to graduate college because I had to keep moving home to fix problems for my dad. And when I'd hang out with people who were, you know, people he didn't know, he'd be like, who are these losers you're hanging out with? Why are they hanging out with you? And I'd be like, well, they're not losers because I'm actually a pretty cool guy. I'm very nice to people, and I would at least hope that my friends are bringing me up. And if I am a piece of shit, these people are making me better. Well, you don't, you know, he'd bother me about how I didn't have a college degree, even though he was the reason I didn't. And I would look at it and I would be like, well, they have college degrees, and he'd be like, oh, so they're accomplished, they have agency, they're real men. Why are they hanging out with you? And it would be something where I would realize that he didn't have the imagination capability to realize that he had built a Schrodinger's death trap where, yeah, if you escape, you're dead. And if you stay in it, you're dead. And that's white culture. You're fucked if you change because you have to leave behind the loyalty of people who want to stay in it. You're anathema. You're exiled. You're heretical. And if you want to stay there, you're damned because it's super fucking boring. Like it's not good for you. And again, going back to what I was talking about before with your agency being tied up in your imagination, if you can imagine new routes and you understand what basically built the infrastructure for social interaction so far, then at some point you come to the bravery to try a few things on your own. You are not beholden to just the options that other people have already tried, especially if those options aren't working. And this brings me to wanting to kind of shift the topic away from men towards women. Research studies show that in every country around the entire world, women age earlier. They become adults earlier than men. Now, research has given me the ability to see, like the digital age has given me the ability to see that this prospect that I'm bringing to you tonight is that these people are losing not their speed, but their functional imaginations. The less they use them and the more cloistered they stay, the less pepper, the less spice, the less thrill, the more thrill hurts. And it's because thrill brings change. And if they are not the ones to choose it, then it only brings pain because they don't get joy from it too. So what you wind up having is that worldwide women will start having this thing happen to their brain where it stops developing. And worldwide, those numbers vary. If you're a 13-year-old Black girl in Tampa Bay, Florida, you are going to have your brain register as an adult because it stops developing at a much younger age than the 15, 16, 17-year-old white boy who is still developing at that time. Because that white boy, as you have pointed out, no small number of times, has more access to fun than that little girl does. And it's that access to fun before she is predatorily stalked by the cops, by other Black men who need her to explain to them how they're going to be agent and have fun. Those girls from around the world are growing up faster, but growing up is a myth. Your brain stops developing when you stop having fun and learning. So there is no age minimum. This is the fountain of youth. You can keep your curiosity and your tenacity for new content high by continually staying dedicated to it. And because research studies show that women age and become adults faster than men, that means that around the entire fucking world, women are holding men up while they continue to have fun. Every fucking country, women are doing the fucking work. Men, especially white men in America, who have the highest age limit before that brain fixing sets in, they are the most catered to, pampered of the species. That is white culture. That is the thing that just curdles the drink in my throat and makes it so that I don't want to have fun because I lived it. That is my lived experience, was seeing how you had to fucking eat shit. And meanwhile, I was still invited to these other parties. I was still allowed to go out and do this stuff. And because I am autistic and have easier access to fun, because that's how that works within my brain compared to neurotypicals, I gain more joy because more sensitivity triggers that dopamine response. It allowed me this one glistening, functional doorway that no one else knew about before now, that I was having enough fun that I could imagine what it was like to be you in a sea of white people who fucking couldn't. And I felt like I was fucking drowning without my ability to create agency to do anything about it. And so that has been the mission, to figure out how to combine everyone as much as possible, to rally everyone to be thrilling with each other, to share their drinks, to share their smokes, to share their parties, to share the things that help us survive the hard times, because times are hard. And I think that's how we make Palestine and Israel fucking just finally just get it the fuck together, is not erase one or the other, but to convince them, because our party is so fucking hot and we got our shit together, that they could do it too, with friendship, with neighborly love, with neighborly thrills, that you're looking out the same window at the same dope ass skyline, and that the people going up and down the street are the same people you celebrate, and that we can now see further into people's lives to know that anybody who crimes because they are looking for this dopamine fix. And that if we as a community do more to give them that, they are less likely to be a repeat offender. And that is proven by the rehabilitation facilities that exist in some European countries that see almost no repeat offenders, because they're feeding them delicious foods. They're giving them playtime. They're giving them adult recess, letting them watch their favorite movies, letting them do their favorite things, letting them do things that are exciting that they weren't giving themselves before they were criminals. And that is also the reason why the American justice system is fundamentally fucked, because you can't take a bunch of dudes who are criming or a bunch of women who are criming because of they need a dopamine fix in order to get them to rehabilitate. Taking away all their fun isn't going to make them better at that. They're not showing them life skills. They're not showing them how to take care of themselves. They're not showing them agency. Whereas these other European rehabilitation facilities are, they're teaching them how to live a better life for themselves. And as a teacher, I would wager very, very highly that you've probably had to do that for some kid.
I mean, brother, like I said, like, I mean, this is like my expert wheelhouse of like 2 decades. So, like, of course, I could say a lot about it. But